It's just that I guess it's important to know who to blame so that as they implode things, I think the solution is, first off, people need to know this was done by design, or the same people that did this will always offer a new solution to the problem they created, which is greater control for them.
Well, that's certainly correct, and you can see that in the presidential campaigns. You can see that. You can't see it so much in the McCain campaign because John McCain says everything is just great as it is. But when you get into the solutions being offered by Hillary Clinton, for example, and even to some extent Obama, although I don't think Obama is quite as much a part of that establishment as Hillary Clinton is, yeah, essentially you're saying, put me back, trust us, and we'll fix it for you.
Well, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, well, I mean, let's go ahead and get into the solutions. I just want to make clear here that they have got us tied down, and it's going to be hard to have these solutions. But I just want to be clear about that.
Well, I think that's true, and I guess from my point of view, being someone who's worked in this field, I've tried to get a meeting with Secretary of the Treasury Henry Paulson, and of course have not been granted an audience. But obviously there has to be a political revolution in order to get people into power in the White House who can make a difference and who can bring the reformers in.
But that's the problem. It's not. You would think of the word reformer to fix a problem. Nothing's broken. The war on drugs, some more drugs are shipped in by them. They put more of us in their private prisons owned by banks that launder the money. It's not broken. The war on terror is not broken. They mean to stay in Iraq for 100 years. They meant to sow seeds of insurrection, divide the country in 3 parts. It's been a great plan. Mission is accomplished. When Bush said that, he meant it. It's just not the mission we were told. And it's the same thing here. You know, I understand that there are reforms that can pull us out of this. It's not even too late, according to Ron Paul and others. The problem is the establishment isn't going to allow that to happen. They preemptively took over the voting machines in the last 20 years. They preemptively pre-placed and brainwashed police. I mean, they have premeditatedly been really setting all the dominoes up here for a long time. Go ahead. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to let people assess just how serious it is.
I think that's so. Yeah, and I certainly would not argue with that. But if anyone has any hope to try to reform anything, I think we need to realize that all of these manifestations that are going on of terror, of state terror, of internal crackdowns, of internal collapse, all of this is happening because we have a failed economy. And in order to make any progress or any headway at all into getting out of this situation, the economy of the United States has to be rebuilt from the ground up. And there are 3 areas where somebody has got to take responsibility for making changes. And let me tell you what I think those 3 areas are. One is American family farming, because a nation that cannot feed itself cannot exist.
Oh, I agree.
I think we've got to face that. And
get back to self-sufficiency. Those are things we can take on ourselves, yes.
There has to be the ability for us to be able to feed ourselves within our own boundaries, using our own resources, and we can do that if we set out to do it and if we have the policies in place that can accomplish that.
But that's why, so we can have our solution, we've got to block their real ID, their animal ID, their premises ID, which was written by the Big Agra to shut down family farms and ranches, have inspectors on your land, $1,000 a day fines for no reason, absolute bureaucracies of little environmental control freaks running around foaming at the mouth.
Yes. Yes, we do, absolutely. And then we've got to rebuild the infrastructure. Streets, the bridges, the railroad systems, the mass transit systems, and...
Continue, sir.
And along with that, we've got to rebuild the soft services, the health services, and the educational services, and we've got to be able to do that by controlling the monetary system. So the underlying reform that has to be made is of the monetary system, and that's what I've been arguing now over the last year and a half. Let me just mention Ron Paul. You brought him up. He has made history as the first major presidential candidate ever to call for the abolishment of the Federal Reserve.
Yes, we now have those key ideas being introduced.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right, and he's done a great service by doing that. Because the very first thing that a president who is truly a president of the American people has to do is eliminate the Federal Reserve as a bank of issue and get rid of the debt-based monetary system, and then get rid of the bankers and the Wall Street financiers as being the overlords.
Richard C. Cook, we got a break again. Stay there. We'll be right back after this quick break. I think we're going to skip the next break on my internet feed. Stay with us. We're talking about Congressman Ron Paul. I have him up on the document cam for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. The fourth hour becomes a television show for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. Also for people that listen to the InfoWars radio internet streams. We a lot of times do little interviews during the breaks as well, as we'll do during the next break with Mr. Cook, and we'll come back at the 33 after and start taking some calls in the time we have left. We'll obviously have to have Mr. Cook back. Continue with the monetary reform ideas that you have, sir.
Well, let me just mention, I will have an article coming out in the next couple days on global research that will go into what we've been talking about today, Alex, in a lot of detail. And so people can take a look at that, and also they can write me on economicsanity@gmail.com with questions that they have. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention about Ron Paul's candidacy is that it proves, despite what a lot of people say, that the public is ready to listen to new ideas. But even progressive analysts, including, I have to say, Ralph Nader, who says he's running for president again, are so locked into outmoded concepts that they do not understand, they do not realize that a completely new type of monetary system is needed to really achieve economic democracy.
Well, that's because their strategists tell them the public can't grasp it, and so they just go with sound bites themselves. It's all
that is correct.
It's all very stagnant. So break down the monetary system. How do we extricate ourselves first out of their control, abolish the Fed? We have to educate people first, so that's happening. Secondarily, then, what system do you like, being a monetary expert with the Treasury Department, working in the White House, being an analyst for NASA, studying this at the White House level? What do you and other experts you confer with, I mean, how would you reverse what we see here?
Let me put out a concept first, very briefly, and then I'll give some specific ideas that I and other monetary reformers are promoting. The basic concept that must be understood, that people do not understand today, and that I've been writing about now in my writings for the past year and a half, is to look at what is credit. Credit is a power of nature that is truly part of what we call the human commons, the common heritage of mankind. Credit allows a society to create value by using the ability that we have to draw out of our future productivity into what we can create and use today. Now, that sounds complicated.
It's a form of leveraging.
But what it means is, yes, it's a form of leveraging, but it is a public utility. It is a public utility as water is a public utility or as electricity is a public utility. The management of credit should never be given away or privatized to individuals or corporations who manipulate it for profit. That's what the banks have done, and it is.
Well, they've abused the hell out of it. I mean, they've abused just the complete daylights out of it.
That's correct.
At every single level, aggressively trying to hurt economies, trying to destroy economies, so they can consolidate as a business model, stated in their own documents.
That is correct, and it's this privatization of credit through the banking systems that has loaded humanity with the tremendous burden of debt. It's made short-term profits the highest priority of everything that's done in a business, and it's made modern industry really as much a curse as it is a blessing. And it's this privatization of credit that has to be changed. So I have, and this is work I've done with a lot of other people who are involved in the monetary reform movement around the world that people really need to become aware of. There are three things that I'm proposing. The first is a guaranteed income which will be accomplished through what we call the national dividend. Now, you've heard of the Alaska Permanent Fund, where every year
it's the comprehensive
of Alaska is given a stipend.
Yeah, it's the comprehensive annual financial reports that have trillions of dollars off budget, and so absolutely, instead of giving all of this investment capital to offshore corporations, take it back over by the government and then have it distributed equally to the population.
That's correct. In my estimate, and this is in a global research article I wrote last year, which is called An Emergency Program of Monetary Reform for the United States, calculates the national dividend where we are right now at $12,000 per capita annually. Now, you can compare that to the $600 per person that Bush is about to send you back on your tax rebate. What I'm saying is that a national dividend should amount to, at least at this point, $12,000 per capita annually, and there are a lot of ways to issue that to the population, and I go into some detail in this.
Well, it's an absolute fact. I made a film about this 8 years ago. Stay there, sir. We're going to be right back for the main radio listeners. For Infowars.com stream listeners and PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, we're going to go live right now for this 3 minutes and come back and take your calls. The show continues at Infowars.com on those streams.